Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make vegan potato buns. The first day you're going to start by dicing one onion and dehydrating it in the oven at 200 degrees Fahrenheit for about 4 hours until nice, crispy, and brown. And then your second step will be to bake 2 potatoes in the oven or whatever you choose to do it for about 1 hour until really nice, smooth, and creamy on the inside. Day 2 is going to be your most extensive day, so you're going to rinse and mince 2 tablespoons of fresh sage. I highly recommend that you use fresh sage because the texture is much nicer in the buns. You can also use dried herbs if you choose, or chives is also very nice. So this is pretty self-explanatory, the process. You're just going to mince your fresh herbs really quickly. And then once you're done with that, you're going to dice up the potato. You're going to use 200 grams of potatoes in this recipe. The potatoes obviously that you baked the day prior, and you're going to make them into about a 1-inch square. It's really not a big deal how big the potato is because you will eventually mix it into your dough and it'll separate and disintegrate into the dough very nicely. Alright, so for the onions, you're going to soak them in water for 10 minutes to make them nice and soft after they've been dehydrated. You will obviously then drain them and set them aside for when you will add them to your dough. Alright, and so now the preparation of the dough. First, you're going to make 1 vegan egg. It's an egg replacer. It's a wonderful brand. I will put it in the details for you to use. It's 1 tablespoon of this mixture with 2 tablespoons of water. You mix it, and then you just set it aside until it gets nice and solidified. It'll have a very egg-like texture, kind of gooey. It works great to bind everything. You're going to add then 600 grams of all-purpose flour to a bowl. This will be a bowl with all of your dry ingredients, so try to keep it separate. Once that's done, you're going to add 6 grams of instant yeast. The Saf Instant is my favorite brand, and I've seen many people on YouTube and chefs use it all the time, bakers, etc. So I recommend getting this brand. It's very cheap, and you can buy it off of Amazon. In addition, you're going to add 20 grams of sugar, and this can be, I used evaporated cane sugar, but you can use regular white sugar. Brown sugar is also good, but you know, white sugar is nice because of the color. You're going to add 15 grams of salt. Sea salt is preferable, or iodized salt, whatever you like. But I chose to use some sea salt. You're going to mix it all together, obviously, because these are your dry ingredients. Just whisk it before we continue with the wet ingredients. So for the wet ingredients, you're going to combine 170 grams of almond milk and 18 grams of apple cider vinegar. This is actually going to be your vegan version of buttermilk. So make sure you add the apple cider vinegar or white vinegar in order to get a really nice buttermilk texture. Alright, so once that's done, you're going to add 17 grams of melted vegan butter. This will replace any sort of yolk. I found that butter is essentially all fat, obviously, and so is a yolk. It's all cholesterol. Then you're going to add the vegan egg we prepared from earlier. Here I show you the texture. It's kind of gross, but it works excellent in vegan baked goods. In addition, I added some sourdough starter. You can also add discard. I just like to use it because I have it around. 40 grams of starter or discard, or you could just add this to some vegan buttermilk or the 120 grams of soy milk that I add here. You can just add it to and make it 160 grams of soy milk instead of using sourdough starter or discard. Look at that, looks kind of gross, but then you're gonna mix all of your wet ingredients. I definitely use a KitchenAid because it's way easier. You can also do this by hand, it just takes way longer. You will then gradually add the dry ingredients to your wet ingredient mix. Make sure to do this gradually, it works easier. Sometimes I get a little over my head and do it all at once, but nevertheless, after that, you will mix it all together in your KitchenAid or by hand, and be very patient because it will take a while for the dough to form, but it will eventually come together. This is an enriched dough with obviously potatoes and herbs, but also milk, etc. So it's going to be very dense and it'll take some time to really get it into a nice texture. So be patient. After that, you're going to add your soaked onions, your sage, your roasted potatoes, all of the wonderful ingredients we already prepared from the day before into the mixture. So this is really where the dough hook comes in handy because you won't have to do this by hand. However, if you do this by hand, you will need it for about 20 minutes to well incorporate all of the add-ins. But here I obviously just use the KitchenAid, so it comes together in about 5-10 minutes on low and proceeding to medium speed on the KitchenAid. So once that's coming together, I added about a tablespoon of olive oil just because I felt it was dry. You can also add soy milk, and then I let it prove in the sunshine. I have a very nice little window where the sun comes together next to my herbs until doubled in size. So this takes from an hour and a half to 2 hours. It depends on the temperature of your apartment. So this will definitely vary. But the last step of day 2 is once the dough has doubled and it's beautiful, just sitting there staring at you. I love that sensation. But then you're gonna just wet your hands a little bit and you're gonna fold it. So you're gonna take the outside parts of the dough and then just gently lift and pull it towards the middle, and do this on every section of the dough. I chose to do it about 4 to 5 times because that's how long it took me to get the exterior into folded into the middle. So there's many ways to do this. I just do it this way. I found it to be the most simple. It's also a very dense dough, so it's not going to be super easy, but it worked nevertheless. So once you're done folding, and here I have a wonderful shot where I show it to you, you're going to then let the dough rest in the refrigerator to produce a very nice flavor, fermented flavor, overnight or up to 24 hours in the fridge. So this can take place while you're sleeping or just while you're having a busy day. You just let it chill in there. Look at that great fridge of mine. And then day 3 is really where the magic comes to play because you get to enjoy these buns, but it's gonna prove just a little bit in the refrigerator. It won't be anything drastic because the refrigerator and the coldness of it will slow down the fermentation. But then on the floured surface, you're gonna take out the dough, which is honestly one of my favorite parts because you can see really how the bacteria has fermented the dough. So you're going to take it out onto the floured surface and then begin to cut it into equal sections. So for this dough, I divided it into 12 to 13 buns, or just pieces at this point, that are about 110 grams a piece. So this is really where the scale is most important, but you can of course eyeball it. You're going to shape the dough into small and tight little balls. The reference is quite awkward, but it's true. I do this by putting the dough in the palm of one of my hands, it's the left hand, and I use the right hand with my thumb and two other fingers of your choice, and you roll it into a tight ball. You're not necessarily pulling the edges to the middle, but just forming a tight glutinous structure for that ball to really form and eventually make a nice hamburger bun. And once you're done doing and rolling all of the balls, you're going to put them on 2 trays lined with parchment paper. And this is critical. You're going to pat each bun down. I did not know this before making hamburger buns, but this is crucial, or else you get just like a ball of dough. You need to pat them down into a flat patty about 3 to 4 inches wide, and do this to every single hamburger bun because you want them to all be sort of uniform. And the beautiful thing is, once you put them into the oven, they will grow and have a more normal round shape. They're not going to be hockey pucks. They're going to explode a little bit in the oven. So definitely make sure to flatten them out and make them the width of whatever sort of patty you will eventually include inside of the sandwich. So I had a large, sort of medium-sized filling that I knew I was going to use. So I didn't make them super, super big, but you can be sure, feel free to make them wider or smaller up to your liking. All right, and this is my favorite part. You're gonna let the buns double in size after you've fattened them into little patties, flatten them, and then they're gonna puff up beautifully, and they already start to look more like hamburger buns, and they're gonna just rise beautifully in the oven. So when you're done with that, you're gonna add, and this is optional, but to replace an egg wash, I use a bit of soy milk and olive oil that I just mix together. I eyeball it. It's about a tablespoon of each if you prefer measurements. And then I essentially brush that over my hamburger buns, my potato and onion buns. And I do this to every single one. Feel free to just use soy milk, just olive oil, whatever floats your boat. I like to do a mixture of both because it seems to work just the same as a normal egg wash would work on non-vegan bakes. And once you've done that, you're going to bake them at 350 degrees. So be sure to preheat your oven, and you're going to bake them for 30 minutes. So this obviously depends on your oven and how it heats, how it loses heat, etc. But what I chose to do is I put one set of buns in the lower third of the oven, and then another set of buns in the top third of the oven. And at 15 minutes, so halfway through the bake, I flipped them and changed the ones that were on the top to the bottom and vice versa. And it creates a beautiful bun. They're gonna come together and they're gonna just be these nice, round, delicate buns with onion and potato. And there it is. There's the crumb. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you like it, comment, share it, subscribe. See you later.